Vegas's trusted voice, delivering uncompromised truth, shining a light on heroes who are boldly fulfilling their destiny by walking in their true identity. Here's your host, Naomi Van Wyk.
Today with me, we have a very special guest who I am so honored to introduce to you, Penny Nance. I've known Penny for many, many years, and she has such an amazing story that I can't wait for you all to hear. Penny Nance is the CEO and president of Concerned Women for America, which is a recognized national authority on cultural, children's, and women's issues. As the CEO and president of the nation's largest public policy women's organization, Penny oversees more than 500,000 participating CWA members across the country, over 400 prayer action chapters of influencers, and over 267 Young Women for America presidents and ambassadors. She's also the president of Concerned Women for America Legislative Action Committee, serving as the principal spokesperson for both entities. She's named as one of the top four most powerful pro-life female voices by the Christian Post. She's a weekly political commentator and a popular speaker at national events. Penny appears on all major television networks as a commentator on contemporary events and as an expert on domestic issues. She's been featured in numerous national publications. Penny served on Trump's Life Advisory Council and was blessed to frequent the White House in that role, and others, speaking as a modern-day Esther to both the president and the vice president, and key staff as the voice of Christian conservative women of faith around the nation. She's a wife, a mother of two, has written amazing books, and I am so honored to call her my friend. And welcome to the show.
It's so fun to be here, and you're too generous in all your praise, but it's just an honor to be with you also, Naomi. I've enjoyed getting to know you and just watch you flourish and just the light you bring into a room of women, and it's just great to be with you.
Well, Penny, one of my first intimate memories with you is back in, I think, 2016, when I was trying to conceive, and you prayed for me in the lobby of a hotel in DC.
Yes.
We were at Value Voters Summit, and you prayed for me to conceive. And I now have a 6.5-year-old, and your prayers were part of that miracle.
Yes, I pray for babies and husbands all the time. I'm happy to do that. God is the opener and closer of the womb. And, I'm so happy when I meet people and they share something so intimate with me. And I was so thrilled to pray over you, but also thrilled to see that God said yes.
He said yes, and you just have a special anointing and calling on your life. And just thank you for coming on the show. I really just wanted you to talk about so many things. You're on national news and talk about so many different things politically, but we don't always get to hear your story, from a personal level. And so, when you were a young girl, what did you dream of doing and being? Was this your lifelong dream?
Well, that makes me laugh that you would even ask that, because honestly, I'm a preacher's kid from Appalachia. I didn't even know what a lobbyist was. I didn't know anyone that lived or worked in Washington. I never met a member of Congress. I did go to the state legislature. At that time, I was born in Tennessee. My dad moved when I was like 8 to Kentucky, and we went and saw our state rep with my class. And so I did meet him, which I thought it was super cool. But I could never in a million years have guessed that I would ever be sitting or across the table from the president, or, just recently at the White House Christmas party on stage with him. I never would have ever been able to ask that. My family, we're a very humble community, a lot of coal miners in my dad's church growing up. A doctor, a lawyer, oh my goodness, we didn't even hang out with people that were doctors and lawyers. Like, that was way beyond. I remember thinking when I was a teenager, because I always liked clothes, and noticing that the women that were the bank tellers were really well dressed, and thinking, well, maybe I could be a bank teller. I knew that I didn't really want to be a teacher. I didn't feel called to that. I didn't want to be a nurse. And those are really the professional jobs that women had. It wasn't until I went to Liberty University, and when I was a student there, that Jerry Falwell Sr. was very thoughtful about bringing women in to speak to the entire university, but particularly to the young women. And while I was there, I heard from Elizabeth Dole, who
Wow.
she might have been a senator at the time. I don't remember, but it was Bob Dole's wife who was elected to
Hmm.
represent North Carolina. I heard from, and she was also in Reagan's cabinet, so I don't remember like what the job she had at the time. I heard from Peggy Waymeyer, who was a religion correspondent from, I think, ABC News. I remember she had a sizzle reel, and I thought that was so cool. I can't believe I have my own sizzle reel now. Like, you took those little clips, of all the things she did. I remember thinking, oh my goodness, this woman. And then I also heard from Beverly LaHaye, who was a pro-life activist and had started Concerned Women for America. And I was so just sort of blown away because I was very pro-life. I cared very much about the issue. I went and joined. There was only one collegiate chapter for Concerned Women for America at that time in the entire country, and it was at Liberty University. And I joined
Wow.
that chapter, and I don't know how faithful I was about attending, to be honest. I wasn't the president. And I wasn't that particularly driven in college. I wasn't, I was a little rudderless. I didn't really know what God had for me, but I really wanted to accomplish things for Christ. And I cared very much for the unborn. And I had a soft heart towards the least of these, but I had no idea. So to answer that, like, no, not in a million years. I ended up getting a job on Capitol Hill after I graduated from college, and the Lord kept opening up doors. And that's honestly how I got here. Like, it's but God.
Wow.
I have no other way to explain it. I certainly was not, the best, the brightest, the most driven. I didn't have a 5-year plan. I didn't have a 2-month plan. I just was enjoying college, living my life. And when I was a little girl, I couldn't have ever in a million years aspired to this because we didn't have dinner with the mayor, much less the president.
Right. Wow. It just is a reminder of, the Lord directed your steps
Yes.
and his plan and purposes for you were far bigger than you could have dreamed. And
Yes.
when we trust him and walk in the path and the doors that he opens, his favor is unbelievable. So it
That's right.
sounds like maybe kind of when you were at Liberty was your first exposure to public policy and
Actually, it goes back a little further than that. My father was very locally active, and he took me as a little girl to the local city council meetings. Because weird story,
okay.
and I didn't love this about my dad, by the way, because he was really out there, and he didn't care who he offended because he was just going to tell the truth. But we moved to a town of 6,000 people, had one movie theater, and at midnight, the movie theater that showed Disney during the day turned over to be a porn theater at midnight. And like, and it happened, I guess, around the South. I didn't know. But anyway, his idea, which was actually a very good one, because it's a little town, everybody knows everybody. He just got our church to go stand in front of the theater and hand out tracts, Christian tracts at midnight. And so all of a sudden around the corner would be their neighbor, and they'd just keep on walking. And then like the local, like whatever. And so that all ended. And I got to tell you, the people that were making money were very upset about it. He didn't make friends in some high places, and I was embarrassed to death by all of it. But, God puts you in the family you should be in. Like, you don't get to pick that. And as hard as some people's families are, there's things that I believe that, God has for you, a legacy that you may not even know. But my dad was a man of prayer and of faith. And sometimes he's passed on now. And sometimes I think, Lord, I hope in heaven he knows that, literally last week, the president pulled me up on the stage for the White House Christmas party. I think that would make him proud. But I didn't plan any of it. And, Young Women for America didn't exist. I started that when I came on board. We have over 400 Young Women for America collegiate chapters now because of what an influence CWA was on me when I was in college.
Wow. That's amazing. I know. So I want to hear more. So you went from this little Tennessee girl, but your dad was a little bit of an activist by doing that. So you had that in your blood and that legacy. And your dad, I'm sure, is so proud of you. But then
he also showed in my local church a movie that now I think young ones, Gen Z would be shocked by. It's called The Silent Screen, and it was an early. it was done by a guy named Bernard Nathanson, who had been an abortionist. And with the
Yes.
invention of the sonogram, he filmed an abortion, and you could see the baby, and it's grainy, and it's, but it is trying to get away from the needle, and it opens its little mouth, and like, that this baby is scared, like, and you see what's happening, and you've ended a life. And so when I was 17, my dad showed that in our church, and that's how I became pro-life.
Wow.
It completely floored me. I was
Wow.
so moved and upset by it that I had to like go out of the room and like take a minute, because I thought I was going to faint. I was literally
Oh,
physically ill by watching it. It made such a huge impact, and he showed it around
mm,
the area. But it was, now by today's standards, it's not a great film. Now we have we have Baby Olivia's story, and we have so many things that we can actually show young people. And we're working to do that in states around the country as part of their education. Like, they need to see not an abortion, but fetal development. You can't deny
yeah,
what it is when you see the windows into the womb that we have now in 3D and 4D. But
that's so true.
back then we didn't have all of that. So yeah, my dad made a huge impression on my life.
So at 17, you really got gripped with
Hmm.
what abortion really is. And would you say that's kind of when you were like, okay, I'm going to be a pro-life advocate?
No, I wasn't. I didn't know what I was going to be, but I knew what I believed. And actually became an advocate in school. My first debate was what Mrs. Oh shoot, I'm having like a senior moment. But my
We
my
all have them.
speech my speech teacher, who's Anna Scott, was her name, and she's
Uh-huh.
still alive. Taught speech and debate, and she taught me my first debate. And you got to pick the topic, but I chose abortion. And so my
Wow.
first debate ever was on the issue of abortion. I felt so strongly about it in high school. I'd seen what had happened. I understood what it was, and I wanted to tell everyone.
That
That
is
didn't always make
awesome.
me popular either, by the way.
But one of my questions for you is how did God prepare you for the position that he's put you in? And that sounds like right then and there when you gave that debate, that was
Mhm.
one of maybe the first places and times where God was honing your skills
Yeah.
and how, because that's what you do a lot now is
Yeah.
you are all over the news and you are debating the opposite side and you are so eloquent in
Thank you.
how you communicate. But you're right, at first had to start with that belief and then
Mhm.
God grew that into how to really be a voice for the voiceless. And you're such an excellent
Thank you.
spokeswoman
Thank you.
for the
Well,
life issue, but all
it's
for
hard.
all
Yeah.
women.
I mean, I just, I did CNN recently. I'm getting ready to go on again, and that is not an easy crowd. That is a rough one. And you tend to be debating not just one person, but the table, which is super hard. So pray for me if you see that. But
I
it
will.
also comes down to like, in my dad pulled me up in front of an audience. I was always up in front of the church doing something. So again, like God put me in the
Mhm.
family that I needed to be in, but also my mother. And my mother was a very shy person. She never wanted to be out
In
front. She
in
was
the
very
spotlight.
private. She was not the woman leading Bible study. Those many pastors' wives that are like that, but that was not my mother. But I have a memory, and I wrote about this in my first book, that and I didn't have, in fact, all the facts straight. My dad like corrected some of the story later. My dad's denomination was Free Will Baptist, and there's a yearly meeting of that denomination every year in July. And we were in Georgia, I think it was Macon, Georgia, in a giant ballroom. There were thousands of people there. And at the time, I think it was maybe the lieutenant governor now I'm forgetting some of the story myself, of Georgia, or maybe it was the governor, came and spoke. And he had a history I think he owned a restaurant, and he wouldn't allow Black students into his restaurant. He stood in front of the door and
Wow.
wouldn't allow them, and he was a absolute racist.
Oh,
But he was a professing Christian. And, that's hard to
oh.
understand, especially in today's world. So this was probably the 1970s that this happened. And
Mhm.
so he came and spoke to the group, and um at the end and they were very excited, that either the governor or the lieutenant governor, I'll have to look up, I can't remember who it
Yeah.
was, but was speaking. And what I can remember very, very clearly, as they gave him at the end of his speech, is what you tend to do when you have a high ranking, person. Um, they gave him a standing ovation. And in that
Wow.
room, in the only person who refused to stand was my mother. She was not going to stand for him. She sat and crossed her arms, and in every way, nonverbal way you possibly could, she was very Maddox. Lester Maddox was his name. That's all.
Okay. Yep.
And she's like, she was not interested in any way giving any adulation to
So you got some grit from your mama too.
my mother and my father. Like, there was this sort of argument on the way home because, what's going on. And it wasn't that my dad did a lot of things, like really brought the church together, brought African Americans into our church, like took down a lot of those divisions in the church, brought in choirs from other area Black churches, like had a great, so he really on his own was really a civil rights person who really very strongly wanted to stand up for civil rights. But he just was trying to be polite. And my mother had no interest in being polite. And so what I learned is there is a place for women to not be polite and to stand their ground and stand up. And, often you can share with grace what you have to say, but you've still got to say it.
Check out our cute merch line. All purchases help support our ministry and this podcast.
It makes me think of the statement, silence in the face of evil is evil itself.
That's right.
And so your mom was not going to go along with something. She was going to
No.
make sure she made her point that she did not agree with this man.
Yes,
So-
it was pretty shocking because, again, I had no idea what was going on. I was a tiny little girl, but I knew
Yeah,
something was going
But
on.
you,
And it
you
was a big
remembered it.
deal.
It's stuck in here and stuck in
Yes,
here.
it did.
So how do you prepare when you're going to go on CNN and you're going to be the only conservative, pro-family, pro-life woman at that table, and you're not going on, and like you said, it's the whole table. How do you prepare? How does the Lord give you all that you need to walk into the lion's den? You're like Daniel walking into the lion's den, or Joseph in Pharaoh's palace.
Yeah, I mean, I think often with people that it's like a blind man stepping on your foot, right? I don't think they know any better for the most part, and now try to remember it in that way, but really through prayer. And lately I've taken to getting on my knees and praying protection over every part of my body, because I've recently discovered that spiritual warfare is not just emotional or mental or spiritual. It can also be physical. And I won't go into the reason I know that, but I do very much know that. I learned that the hard way not too long ago.
And you shared that with me when we spoke a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, it's prayer. That's how I get on. But also, like, you have to study. You have to study to show that self-approved. So,
That's a
I
good
work
word.
really hard to prep. It's not as if, what people don't realize is that sometimes it's a 5-minute hit. Sometimes it's an hour long, but in that hour, I only get to speak like a few minutes. You don't speak the whole hour. You're answering questions and you've got other people, and then and so I work really hard. I prep for hours to go do that because I trust the Lord, but also He expects me to do my part. And so being lazy about it isn't the right way to go about it. As Christians, we have to prepare for the moment that God gives you to speak into a situation. You shouldn't just be lazy about it and not be ready. And so that's really the reason I wrote my first book, Feisty and Feminine. And the whole point of that book is I never wanted, particularly women, to get caught ill-prepared. I never wanted a woman to get stuck looking at her shoes in a situation where there's a conversation going on, where she's at a PTA meeting, she's with the neighbor who, has the all the accolades and has advanced degrees and is super smart and is very sure of herself. I never wanted that woman to not have something to say because she wasn't trained to do it. So that book I took some of the hot button issues of the day and gave them really a map of how to lean into it, literally what to say, other things they can do to to prepare and to do their best to support their position, whether it's a stat or whether it's a story or whether it's just, a piece of information, empirical evidence, because sadly, we know the Bible and we know the Bible is true. And
Mhm.
that's really important. Although I would suggest that as our younger and younger generations don't know the Bible. So that's part of what we're really trying to do a
That's
job in
great.
preparing them for as well, because older women, I felt like we were better prepared in that way, to the point where
Mm.
we leaned on that and not outside resources, because a lot of people, they don't believe the Bible. And so it's almost as if you're speaking another language.
Mm.
So that's, the Bible's true, but because it's true, there's all this other evidence to prove the point.
Right.
So you really need to know it all. So for our young Women for America leaders, though, that really, grew up in some churches that were so seeker friendly that they never really learned the word, we're trying to teach them biblical principles, but also constitutional principles, free market principles, sort of understanding the overall picture of what God has given us in this great nation.
That is so powerful and such a good word that you plead the blood of Jesus over you, put on the armor, but you've also been diligent and faithful to
Yes.
read and study, because you're there for an hour, but you maybe only get 5 minutes of airtime. So you want
That's
to make
right.
those couple minutes really powerful. And I also just want to hear, I remember meeting Beverly LaHaye. I knew Dr.
Mhm.
LaHaye and Beverly LaHaye because I grew up in a politically active family. And so I knew them before. I don't know when you joined CWA, but how did you become the president and CEO of the women's largest public policy organization? That is so remarkable. And you have been in that position and just done a phenomenal job, and then
Yes.
grown the organization
Thank
and
you.
started the Young Women for America, which is so, so needed in our nation.
Mhm.
But what was that transition? You were at Liberty and then
Then I went to work on Capitol Hill. And the member I worked for lost his reelection, and I started working in lobbying. And I had a couple little, in Washington, often young people have sort of short stints in jobs. I had a couple of those.
Mhm.
And I ended up working as a legislative director for an association. And so I'm at this point maybe 25, I don't know.
Mhm.
Um, and I hadn't met my husband yet. I had met him, but we weren't dating yet, I don't think. I met my husband at my church.
Oh,
It's like we
sweet.
were BFFs before we even dated, but which is a whole nother story. Um, but
Have
I
you for the next show on that.
I was working in governmental affairs, and I loved governmental affairs, but I cared about the people. These are small business owners. We were protecting them, and that was great, but that really wasn't what I was called to. So
Mhm.
through a number of events, I concluded that I needed to leave, and I was making way more money than I should have for my age, honestly. And, because it is a well-paid. So I ended up sending out my resume to CWA and to another organization. I had interviews with both within a week. And
Mm.
in 2 weeks, I had an offer and a new job at Concerned Women for America. And when I called my parents to tell them, I was leaving and my new job, and by the way, I was taking like a third of my pay cut to come to CWA, my dad was so upset. And I
Uh,
was like, what are you talking about? Like, you spent your whole life in ministry. How could you be telling me to stay in a job for money? And he's like, well, I just worry about you. And I'm like, I know, but Dad, I'm like, I'm following the Lord's will
yeah.
for my
Mm.
life. Like, you need to support me. And he did. But it was a great job. And I'm a 25-year-old running around Capitol Hill and having so much fun, and had Washington still to this day has an incredible young Christian community. My church is like 600 25 to 35-year-olds. Like, really,
Wow.
these are people that are smart and driven and missional, and they come to Washington to change the world. And many of them are believers and are moved because of that. But I did that job. Met my husband, or got to know him better. We got engaged, got married, and in 3 months I got pregnant unexpectedly. She knows this. With my daughter. and so I got married one February. The next February, I had to rush home at my 1 year anniversary to nurse because I had a new baby, which was my world was rocked. And so I left CW. I think I've been there like, I don't know, 5 or 6 years at that point. I left CWA at that point and started consulting, and I got incredible work. I got, so I was what I wanted, because there was no remote work back then. Like, you either were in office
Mhm.
or you weren't. So I had to start my own thing in order to have some income for my family and, as a second income. And so I wanted to work 10 to 15 hours a week, and I did it. And I joined Liberty's board, and I had a great opportunity. I worked for Christian Trade Association. I worked with D. James Kennedy. I worked for Chuck Colson at Prison Fellowship Ministries.
Wow.
Super fun. And so God was super good to me that I got to do like really tangible, important work while I got to be home mostly with my babies. And then in 2010, Beverly LaHaye came to me and said, I'd like for you to come back and run the organization. By this time, she's in California and is, more farther removed from the organization, and realized like we needed some new energy. And I said, let me talk to my husband. Like I knew this was going to be a big undertaking. And I hadn't worked full time since I'd had kids, but most of my kids were in school at that point. And so I went and talked to my husband, and I was like, what do you think? Of course, this means it's going to be more on you. And, we always want to be at all the kids' things and, the kids' soccer games and, all the things that have to be done. And he said, I believe that you were born to do this job, and I think you should do it.
Wow.
And so we prayed as a family, and here I am. So,
I love that. I love that you put your babies first when that season came. It wasn't when you planned it.
No.
You were a little surprised, but you honored the first call of being a mother, which is the greatest call. And then when the season came for you to step into running CWA, you and your husband prayed, and then God opened this huge door. And you've been there now, since 2010?
Since 2010, I came back as the CEO and president.
The CEO. And then now just tell us, we're going to put up a picture of you just were I know you frequent the White House a lot, and you are, you have the president's ear. He calls on you. You have influence over him and many others in the administration. But you were just at the White House Christmas party, and you didn't know it, but President Trump decided, he didn't even give you 5-minute notice, right?
Oh my goodness. That's a funny story. So, usually, when you're going to the White House, like, whatever, but these Christmas parties, the president doesn't bring people up on stage. I've never seen that happen. I've been to, a few of these now, and I have never seen that happen before any administration. And, I've gotten to meet the president many times over the years and met with him. And, I got to pray with him really, I think it was like 2 days after Charlie Kirk passed away. I was able to, that's on my Instagram page. It's PYNance1 if anybody wants to come. And that was really, really meaningful to me. Like that's one of those things in life that I'll never forget, that I was given that opportunity, because it was a heavy, heavy day. And, I'm many cents. But no, it's hilarious because I'm there and I'm hot. Like, I'm a woman of a certain age, and it's like a crowd of people, and I'm getting hot. And I said to my husband, like, I think I'm just going to go in the other room because the president's up speaking, and I love the president, but I've sat across, not to be, this sounds so spoiled, but I've gotten to sit across the table and have dinner with him. Like being like in a crowd, like, isn't as exciting as it used to be or as it really should be, but I was so hot. And so I moved to the back of the room, and I was thinking I'd maybe like kind of step outside the room. So my husband thinks I'm out of the room. And so the president's giving shout outs to people. I'm like, oh, that's nice. Like I didn't even think I'd get a shout out. And he says, oh, where's Penny? Where's Penny Nance? Where's she? A great organization. They did so much to help like women, like, and he goes, I'm running. They're like, Mr. President, women don't like you. And he's like, I think women like me. And so he's, where's Penny? And so I'm like, I'm back here. I'm at this point, my husband's like, oh no, she's in the other room. Like she's left, and like, no, I'm like, I'm back here. I'm in the very, very back of the room. And he's like, well, bring her up. And I'm like, what's happening? So I'm like, okay, I'm working my way. He's like, tell Secret Service, get her up. And so I think he just wants me at the front of the room. I don't know what's happening. It's like, and then he goes, come on up. And I still don't get that, like, he wants me to say something. Like, in my mind, goodness. I'm like, oh, he's going to bring me up on stage. Like, what's happening? He goes, please. Like, to hand it to, I'm like, oh, wait, now I'm going to say something. I have no idea. And so I can't even tell you what all said. I wish I'd had 5 minutes to think about it, because I've been with the hostage families before that, and they were so effusive in their praise of the president. I would have passed that on. I would have talked about Nigerian Christians. I would have thanked him for being the leader on the unique dignity of women. There's so many things I said. But what I said that I can remember, I said, Mr. President, you saved our country. And he's standing behind me. He goes, yeah, I did. And so what do you say after that? Like, yeah, you pretty much. So anyway, it was fun. And I got to thank him, and that's basically what I did. I just thanked the president for all that he had been able to do, because I do believe that. I do believe our nation is such a downward spiral in every way, in the economy, in morally, in like just the confusion over like who belongs in my locker room and who belongs on women's sports and the unborn. I mean, all the things that President Biden was, either he or his staff were doing, were just insidious. And so I just got an opportunity to thank the president, but it's a funny one, because I'm like, it was one of those things, like, we got home, I got back down to my president, he's like, my husband rather, and he goes, oh my goodness, I know she left. Like, I know. I'm like, I know. I almost did.
You told me a little bit about this, off camera, and I was just envisioning that you were like sitting on the front row when he just sees you.
I'm in the very back of the room. Nobody can even see me. So it was pretty funny. So yeah, it was shock and all. But you know what? I said to my staff, like that verse about being ready in season and out of season, my lesson for that is to always be ready. Always be ready. There's so much I would have shared. There's so much I would have said in front of that group. And in that room, by the way, was not a bunch of conservative activists. It was like the president of, major Fortune 500 corporations.
Wow.
And unbelievers. And I mean, what I would have said something about, the real reason for Christmas, and
right.
That the birth of Christ is just the beginning, but the resurrection is the real deal. And there's so much I would have preached if I'd had the chance. But
you know
my
what?
Goodness, one of those things. Lessons learned.
You have to trust and know that you are prepared, and that the Holy Spirit gave you the right words at the right time, and the Lord didn't want you to be any more prepared.
Maybe not.
Than you were, and I'm sure he used it, and it was so beautiful, and we're going to show a clip of that here as well in a minute. But I want to just jump back to 3 months ago. Yesterday was September 10th, and I was actually flying to DC to join you for the Concern Women for America Summit, and that's the day that we all know that Charlie Kirk was assassinated, and it's a day that we will never forget. Where we were, what we were doing when that tragedy hit. And I have such memories of it, because I was across the country from my family, and I was actually in the airport with my layover. My phone starts blowing up of people saying, Charlie's just been shot. He needs a miracle. And the Lord knew I was going to be with you, Penny. And I was going to be with all these amazing, concerned women that are trailblazers like Charlie, that are leading the way. And it was such a surreal time to, flying to DC. Of course, you never dreamed that something like this is going to happen. We're thinking we're going to this amazing summit, and we're going to lobby on Capitol Hill. And I was so excited. And you and your team did such a beautiful job. And it was just the Lord, I think, that we were all there together in DC, and then we got to go lobby and be in the Capitol. And, I had the chance to pray with staffers that were just in tears. And they're like, you know what? The one staff I remember praying with, she's like, I wasn't supposed to be the person you all were meeting with, but I know the Lord brought you here because we need your support. We need your prayers. You have no idea what is going on here with, they were afraid for their lives. They were beefing up security. I mean,
just sad, Yeah, we had the Speaker of the House come to our event. Yes. So
tell us about that.
Every September we do a major gathering. In fact, we've got the summit coming up. Come to CW's website and sign up. Like, we'd love for you to come to our summit. It'll be this September, I think the 16th through the 19th, if I remember correctly. And part of that is a day on Capitol Hill of lobbying. And we were talking to people, I think, about the pregnancy.gov and some, other issues. And before we went out to lobby, we brought in multiple speakers. One was the Speaker of the House, and Marsha Blackburn from Tennessee, Senator Blackburn, and Cindy Hyde-Smith from Senator from Mississippi, and a few others. And 201, they were devastated, and and also felt like if they can kill Charlie Kirk, if someone can kill Charlie Kirk, again, demonic forces are real, then what does that say about their own safety? And I think it was just a God thing. I agree that we're all together, because not just for us older women, but our Young Women for America leaders, one of whom was
Yes.
actually in the audience and saw Charlie Kirk die. And bringing all those young ones together was really important. I don't know if you can play the clip of what I said there on Capitol Hill
Yep.
to them, but just to remind them that, God orders our steps. And
Yes.
we are called, and nothing can happen to us unless the Lord allows it. But
Mm-hmm.
201, and this is, I believe, I know what Charlie would say is, they cannot quiet us. They cannot stop us. They cannot hurt us unless the Lord allows it. And we would rather take a bullet than to be quiet. Like, they will not stop us speaking for the truth, speaking for life, speaking up for our Christian faith and for the truth of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Like, we will not, and we have a much easier deal than most countries. I mean, yes, there are moments, and I've even had some moments where I've needed armed security, and I'm sure there'll be others to come, and that's okay. Thank God I work for a great organization that will get it if we need it. But the truth is, Christians around the world, like the Nigerian Christians right now, are really persecuted. They suffer so much. There's been tens of thousands of them murdered for their faith.
Mm.
Young girls. Imagine your daughter being at Catholic
Ugh.
school and being kidnapped and sold into sex slavery because of your faith or her faith.
Ugh.
That's what's happening right now in Nigeria. 300 little girls and some infants were
Ugh.
stolen, kidnapped from St. Mary's Catholic School in Nigeria, in the midsection of
Mm.
Nigeria. Everybody's excited because about 100 or more have come home. At least 100 are still missing. So I'm not going to be
Wow.
excited until every single one of them are home. My husband
Yes.
just came back from a missions trip in Bangladesh, and in that, there only less than 10% of the population of Bangladesh are Christians. And when they
Mm.
become Christians, they say to them, it is your job to share the gospel. But let me tell you what's going to happen when you do. You're going to get fired. Your family is going to get, discriminated against. You
Mm.
may lose family members, all these things that will happen to you as a result of your Christian faith. Like, we don't know anything about that. That is not the
Yeah.
experience of an American Christian. Yeah, I mean,
Mm.
there has certainly been situations, and thank God for our friends at Alliance Defending Freedom, because we can't allow it to happen. It
Right.
does happen. You have governmental entities that persecute Christians. You have, I think about Jack the Cake Baker, who's
Yep.
was all sorts of things happened to him in the state of Colorado, but
Mhm.
of him not being willing to make a same-sex marriage cake,
Mhm.
all the things that happen because people stand up for their faith. It's not the same as being in Nigeria, but it's still a thing. But we have to stand firm, and we will stand firm. At Concerned Women for America, we're training the next generation to do so.
Check out our cute merch line. All purchases help support our ministry and this podcast.
Which is so, so important and so powerful. And Charlie has left such a legacy and
Mhm.
impact on our
Yes.
nation at just 31 years old. And you are a modern day Esther
Thank
by
you. Oh
far.
my goodness. Thank you.
And have you thought, okay, what does Penny want to be remembered for? What is the
Mhm.
legacy? What's the legacy that you are leaving? It's huge. It's
Mhm.
huge. And it's probably way bigger than you'll ever know until you're in heaven. But what's burning in your heart of what's the legacy that I want my children and grandchildren, but the whole world, the next generation and for generations to come, to go, Penny Nance left this mark.
Wow.
What would you say?
I don't know that they'll know my name, and that's okay. What I pray for is that, just like a curse can be passed down to the 10th generation, I pray for faith to be passed down in my family down to the 10th generation. I
Yes.
have a brand new granddaughter, our first grandchild, named Charlotte. I pray that she will be a great woman of faith, and grandchildren from my son, that they will all be believers, and they will serve the Lord unwaveringly, and then they will pass it down to future generations. And that, starting with my father, that will be ground zero for breaking the curse, because his family was very, very, had so many problems, so much addictions and so many things. And my father broke that curse, broke that time, and moved forward. And I'm praying for that to move down throughout generations, that we are a family of faith to the 10th generation, and that we will walk in accordance with the Lord, with the scripture, and walk out his will, and that the Lord will align my goals and my motives and everything with his will, what he wants, that he'll give me his eyes to see the opportunities in the situation, and give me compassion for the broken, and not to see them as enemies, but as I said before, see it as a blind man stepping on my foot, as opposed to, someone that I dislike. And I do hope and pray that Young Women for America will be a part of that legacy, that it will continue on, that it will grow, and that it will thrive. And in that group, I truly believe that the Lord will raise up future Esthers, and perhaps I think this will be our future leaders of our country.
Yes.
I think these will be women who will get elected to office. Women, I believe that there may be a future president come out of that group, and governors. But in addition to that, not just in government, but also leaders in their community, and Bible teachers and mothers who will nurse the next generation of leaders, and just great women of God. And I see them as really moving into that season, moving into their own. And our job is to pour into their story, and to help prepare them for whatever it is that the Lord has for them. And I believe it's going to be incredible, mighty things for the Lord. And so I think my family certainly always comes first, but behind that, I think our YWA program, I really pray that the Lord continues to bless it and to grow it, gives us the resources to grow it, which is always an issue in a nonprofit, and but raises up these incredible leaders, these amazing Esther women for future generations to come.
Well, it's so powerful, and he already is. And you are just such a humble servant, Penny. How can people get involved? One, I want you to tell people the best way they can buy your books, because you also have a second book out. Tell us the name of your second book.
Yes, 7 Rules for Business and Life. And I wrote this for our Young Women for America leaders, but it's also helpful for women that are sort of re-entering the workforce. We hire women that are, coming off from raising their kids, and now they're going back into the workforce, and that happens all the time. But just women that need a refresh, or women that are coming out of high school or college and going into the workforce and just kind of need the rules. It's the rules that I wish someone had told me before I entered the workforce, things I had to learn. Either someone taught me, or I had to learn it the hard way. No one's born knowing these. It's no shame. It's just somebody has to tell you. It's things I noticed as I was working with our YWA girls that had not been passed on to them. So it really is a book about 10 years in the making, things that I'd noticed, things I'd, kind of worried about, things I made mental notes about, or I told, I verbally passed on, but I'm like, no, I need to write all this down so that everybody can have it. And it's written, kind of lighthearted way. It's a short little book. It's a great thing to
It's super cute.
Shocking. Like, it's not, it's not a big deal. Hey, can you grab one? I'll hold it up.
And we can put it up on the screen in editing process.
It's just a little book. So you can come to our website, or you can go to Amazon. It's available. So the first book is Feisty and Feminine, and the second book is 7 Rules for Business and Life. And, both of them are Christian books. The last chapter in the book, 7 Rules, the thing that I think is the most important for success, is the gospel. And so it's a book that you can give to, like, your neighbor who's not a believer, and it's really soft way to share the gospel, honestly. And so, yes, we try to price it right. Like, we just really want it to get out there and just to really help this next generation of young women. So thank you for asking.
It's a fabulous book. I loved the design on the front cover of both of your books. It's so cute. And you're right. That's a small book. I mean, a great little
Mhm.
stocking stuffer.
Yeah, it's a
Great
little,
thing to.
or like I thought about like graduation, like you stick a little check in or a gift card and then hand up
Yes.
a
It's
cute
it's
little thing.
awesome. They're
Mhm.
both such powerful books. So,
Thank you.
go get Penny's books. Go support CWA.
Yeah,
Come
so
to the summit.
concernedwomen.org. Follow us on our social media. CWA has social media. I have social media, and comment on our things, and then sign up for. We have a weekly email that goes out with it's a report of what happened basically that week, like really important things you need to know about. Links to it if you want to know more information. If you don't, you don't. So sign
It's
up for
great. I get
that
it.
and get that once a week. And we just want to keep you informed. Our goal is to support women to find their own voices and to be
Hmm.
able to speak into the moment in whatever world you're in. And the truth is that if you will give your life to the Lord and you're open to his leading, the sky's the limit. I could not have
Amen.
planned any of this. It is really just the Lord's will. I tell our young Women for America leaders that a life surrendered to the Lord is the biggest adventure. You can't even imagine the adventure
That's so
that he will
true.
lead you on. Just being willing and open to God's leading is the recipe for an incredible journey.
It's the wildest adventure. That's such a good word, such a good word to end on. Penny, thank you so, so much.
Thank
You are a
you.
rock star. You are a
Oh, thank you.
hero.
Well, same, sister.
Oh,
Everything right back at you. It's a pleasure to get to know you. You're such a encouragement to me, and just
oh,
love being with you. You also are so well spoken, and your ministry is really powerful. God is using you in a mighty way, and we're just grateful to be
well,
for
you're so
you.
kind. You are so kind. Well, thank you all for joining us on Trusted Voice Podcast. You were created for a kingdom destiny far beyond your wildest dreams. Now go live it out, and we'll see you next time.